Howdy! In this video, I will be covering a lot of things that I either left out or missed in the first video. Like, sub, comment, and share if you want one of these videos for every dungeon in the game, and now let's get started. Up first is the big green wall behind when you load in. You used to be able to just climb over the wall by scaling the architecture, although as of now it seems to have been patched in the classic Bungie way of just put a big barrier up, lamau. I did try and Storm's Edge through the barrier since that's a thing now, but perhaps the barrier was too thick or I just don't know how to use the super correctly. There is still a way to get out of the Pit of Heresy and into Sorrow's Harbor, but it's a lot more complicated, so I'm going to let an expert show you. Shout out Froggy for this clip, he will be linked in the description. In the previous video, I mentioned that the fastest Pit of Heresy has ever been cleared by a fire team is 5 minutes and 1 second, but after I read a couple of the comments on the last video, I discovered through links somebody sent me that it is not the fastest, and the sub 5 Pit of Heresy run has been breached. The footage you're seeing in the background is from Samzilla, who I believe is the current record holder with a 455. The reason I couldn't find this video anywhere is because it is unlisted and it is not on speedrun.com. If you dunk all the balls in Ogre Maze fast enough, you can keep the ogres inside of the arena when you start totems. The reason you'd want to do this is because if you're fast enough, you can carry leftover balls from the Ogre Maze into totem encounter and they'll count. And also while the ogres are active, the knights will spawn inside the maze so that you can get the encounter done twice as fast, if not faster. At the start of the dungeon while falling, if you're using a Phoenix dive or a Shatter dive, you can quickly switch off of that in the menu to get an even bigger burst of vertical momentum. Necropolis is, to my knowledge, the only encounter in the game to have 2 different rally flag locations. Sadly, they are not both available from the get-go, and to access the flag in the tower, you need to wipe the encounter. Necropolis has quite a few poorly placed death barriers. You can actually oob all the way to the door at the end of the Wizard's Maze from first encounter by following this path. Sadly, the encounters will not activate until the first encounter has been cleared, otherwise you could get this dungeon done even faster. The fastest way to DPS a wizard with a sword in Pit of Heresy is to stand inside of the poison bubble and jump and heavy attack. On the topic of damaging mini-bosses, you can actually damage the Shrieker in Final Boss. You just have to stand on top of them and use the super. In all 3 of the encounters that have the purple orbs, you can use them as weapons. Normally this doesn't mean much, but in this case the orbs count as powered melees, and can proc subclass effects like Radiant, Devour, and Combination Blow. On top of this, they also work with melee-based exotics like Necrotic Grips, Karnstein's, Assassin's Cowl, Winter's Guile, Synthos, Wormgods, and Severance Enclosure, to name a few. The orb will also blind and suppress targets on impact, which I thought was pretty cool. This should be able to interact with that one void fragment that reloads weapons on suppression as well. An oob you can do to see something funny is have a friend or two complete the first encounter while you oob into the Ogre maze through the same gap I used in the wizard clip. Once at the maze, you can head over to the left side and wait. Once your friend has cleared the first encounter, you will see the Ogre model spawn in T-posing for a couple frames. I know that a way exists to get the Ogre to stay T-posing, but I can't remember how to do it because I've only stumbled across it once or twice when I was actively speedrunning the dungeon about 2 years back. If you know how to make it consistent, let me know in the comments because I would love to be able to jump on them again. In the previous video, I talked about an oob to skip Ogre Maze entirely, but if you've been unable to pull it off, there is another option. To my knowledge, this can only be done on Heat-Rise's Warlock, so if you don't want to play that, the other oob is your best bet and way more forgiving. For this oob, what you will want to do is line yourself up with this part of the cliffside on the left side of Ogre Maze. Before I show the oob, I want to recommend using Starfire Protocol for 2 grenades in case you run out of Heat Rises on the first one. Running Icarus Dash will also make movement way easier and slightly more consistent. Okay, from here you want to sword swing out in an Icarus Dash into eating your grenade to gain Heat Rises. Float over to this little segment of the wall, and once you are there, start hugging the wall until you start to float up. Once you've floated up about the height of your character, half of your character at a minimum, although this is risky, you want to do a quick 180, and if done fast enough, you should start floating upwards on what seems like nothing. If this happens, you've successfully breached the map. However, the oob is not done from here as the invisible rock wall is still very slanted and you will slide down if you are standing in the wrong spots. The best way to scale this wall is through trial and error, although Heat Rises, Eager Edge Swords, and Icarus Dash make it a lot easier. Once you're at the top of the rock wall, you'll be on top of the Ogre Maze and can go to the same door I showed in the last video to re-breach into the map and skip the encounter. All that being said, thank you so much for watching the full video. Like and comment if you can, and if you can't do that, share and comment. Everything there helps boost the algorithm, and when the algorithm is boosted, that means I get more views, and more views means more money, which means more incentive to make more videos like this, which means yes, I will be making similar videos on all the other dungeons. So if anyone has any way to contact the player named Crow, I would love to chat about Prophecy. On a side note, I omitted all of the lore info I left out and learned from the past video from this video as well, because I intend on making a full video talking about the lore of Pit of Heresy in the future. Okay, bye.